Hey guys, what's up? My name is Karis. Welcome to Fix Your Shitty Movement. While I've been preparing for the very first Fix Your Shitty Movement workshop, I mean, technically it's the very first. I've done stuff like this before. Anywho, we're talking about the deadlift, which we'll be talking about at the workshop on October 16th. Let me know if you want more details on that. Well, you know, I'm gonna give them to you anyway. And if you don't like it, well, don't look, I don't give a fuck. Okay, so what are we gonna talk about with the deadlift? Well, why do people fuck it up so bad? Why are they so afraid of it? Why is it so shitty? People are really afraid of it because if it's done shitty, it usually hurts their back. It actually hurts more things than their back, but when they hurt their back, it's usually a pretty big event, meaning that they're usually laid out for a while, and it gets to the point where so many people just say they don't deadlift. They don't even fuck with it, they don't mess with it, which would be fine, except you deadlift all the time. It is the most functional of all the movements that you're ever going to do. It is literally learning how to pick something up off of the ground. I moved last weekend, and let me tell you, it really fucking came in handy, being able to lift something heavy, knowing that I know how to protect my back, okay? So when people approach the deadlift, and often even when people are taught the deadlift, it's true, it can be kind of tricky, but the trickiness comes from having to fucking learn the technique. What a bummer, I know. And the thing about the deadlift too is that it is a movement that it's really hard to feel whether or not you're doing it right if the weight is too light. It's like a Dr. Seuss rhyme. So often when people stick with very light weights, they're like, if I go above 95 pounds or 135 or something, then my back hurts right away. So I'm just gonna stick with this weight and do 3 sets of 10 for the rest of my fucking life. And probably what that's doing is reinforcing a bad habit that you have, that when you move to that slightly heavier weight, because it really usually is not much of a difference, that makes a huge difference in the way your body feels, you're actually just reinforcing and repeating that bad habit that you have that you don't even realize you're doing until it gets heavy enough to fuck yourself up with. The main thing and the reason why you kind of have to use enough weight, you know, to a certain extent, to feel it and to correct it is because you're not just lifting something off the ground. It's not like straight up off the ground. It's a leveraging movement. And that goes for sumo and conventional. Sumo is more technical. I know, everyone, or famously, I hear people say sumo seems like cheating because it's too easy. More often than not, those people have not actually tried to discover their 1 rep max or really push their limits with sumo. Because yeah, at 135, it's pretty easy, you know, even at 225. But it's when the wheels come off, as I say that same thing to my clients. We want to find the weight where the wheels come off. Why? Because it's going to expose the problems that arise in your deadlift. P.S. If it's a problem in your sumo, it's more than likely a problem in your conventional, even if the conventional doesn't really cause you pain. How do I know that? Well, I used to be 100% sumo, and when I did conventional, it fucked up my back. And when I say fucked up, I will say I've never had like a major back event. If my back hurts, I just back off. And it's usually a pretty superficial, like QL kind of strain. But I just got to the point where I was like, conventional is stupid and people shouldn't do it. Really? Because RKC, Russian kettlebell, which is my like main area of expertise, pretty much everything we do in there is like a conventional deadlift. So obviously I was blowing smoke because my form sucked, right? And I just didn't want to look at it. Finally, someone forced me to do conventional, a lot of it, for a long time, at a deficit and heavy ass weight. And wouldn't you know it, first of all, I fucking love conventional now. And secondly, my sumo got so much stronger because the issue that was really holding me back in sumo was really highlighted in the conventional. I just didn't want to admit it to myself. But anyway, most of the time when people talk shit about a lift anyway, it's usually because they can't do it. Sumo is much more technical, and it's much more about being patient, and really, I mean, patient is kind of the word for it. Applying the right amount of pressure and not blowing your load too fast, which I understand for some of you might be a little tough. Okay, so when I say that the lift is a leveraging movement, what the fuck does that even mean? Well, let's talk physics, or really let's not, let's just look and see. So if I'm setting up for my sumo deadlift, we'll start there. You know, there's lots of different ways to set up. You can talk to any number of even elite lifters, and they will all have a different way that they set up, that they brace, and all this stuff. So I want you to remember that, at least when you're being coached by me, my answer is always, it depends. I will teach you the way that works for me, or that I find works for the general population that I coach best. But we can always, and we often do, down the line when you get more comfortable in the movement and I can see better what would be more advantageous for you, adjust accordingly. I digress. So in sumo, I personally set up with my shins all the way up against the bar. And there's a number of reasons I do this, but the main one is that when I first started sumo deadlifting, I was squatting, meaning I was like down here. And when you're like this low, the only thing you can do is pull the bar straight up. Now that might not be a problem for some people, and some people who are really fucking strong kind of sumo like that. But for most people, what happens when it gets too heavy is their hips fly up first, and then they finish the lift like this, the dreaded stripper deadlift. I was a bit of a pro at it for a while. I mean, I got all the way to 285 and I didn't hurt my back or anything, and then I just plateaued, and I plateaued hard. Eventually, I did hurt my adductor pretty badly, because why? I kept hammering away at it at not even too much weight, but enough weight to put tension on that one area, and the path of, well, not the path of least resistance. I'm going to use that phrase later, so keep that one in mind, or rather erase it so it seems improvised. Anyway, so the weakest link, right? That's where it's going to break. So it's not always going to be your back, right? That's the most memorable one, because when it lays you out, it lays you the fuck out. But often people don't realize that the way that they're deadlifting is also fucking up their shoulder, or their upper back and neck, or even their knees, right? There's all sorts of shit that you can fuck up if you fuck up a lift. It's not just the deadlift. It could also be your shitty squat that's hammering away at whatever weak link, and then the deadlift just shines a light on it. Anyway, my point is, you don't see it as an opportunity to get better at this shit, or give up lifting entirely and take up Tai Chi or something like that, where you think you can't get hurt. But I got news for you. Getting hurt is a part of life. So being strong is your best defense against hurting yourself in the dumbest way possible. Like, I don't know, toweling off your hair and your back goes out. I don't want to be like that. So, again, if I set up really low with my shins up against the bar and I push my knees forward, it will make the bar roll away. So that's a really clear signal to me that I am squatting the fucking weight. So I have people, which is a very, I want to say, potentially the biggest issue with sumo. So when I set up for sumo, my hips go back and I make sure that my shins stay vertical. So the leveraging comes from hips down, chest up. So the first thing that actually rises is my chest. And that, my friends, is leverage. Same thing with conventional. In fact, it's clear to see with conventional. And you'll see a lot less deviation from this kind of thing. But meaning that in sumo, there's a lot more variety in sumo, let's put it that way. So here, right? Once again, chest back, and the leveraging point happens when my shoulders are right over the bar. See, my chest comes up, my hips go down, and then it comes forward. And every rep, I set up for that same leveraging motion. So when people are just picking the bar straight off the floor, it really doesn't look bad, and it's really hard to see that they're not leveraging when they're just lifting it straight up, right? Because the hips and the chest can move together, right? there's less of a demand on your lats to have to actually hold on to the fucking bar. It's usually right above body weight where the wheels come off. Everyone's a little different. You're in luck if they come off sooner, because that means that we identify the problem sooner. Although generally, I don't want to say your coach should be able to, but they really should be able to. Or at least they should be working on becoming able to, because, you know, everybody starts somewhere. So, the leverage. How can you better improve the leveraging? Well, there's a few different ways. The kettlebell makes it actually really, really clear. God damn this floor. Excuse me. This used to be a roller rink or some shit, and so, for whatever reason, the building's old as shit, so it rolls all the time. I actually find that using kettlebells, it's a big surprise, right? Can help a lot because they don't move, right? You have to set your body up around the bells, unlike the barbell, right, which moves a lot, which really interrupts, confuses your concept or understanding where you are in space. Usually that's where like people can't even feel when their knees are like this because they're just so used to doing it that way. But when the bells have this nice flat surface and also two individual handles, you can really use that to your advantage. Sometimes. It just doesn't work for everyone. What's the best angle? It's gonna be a lot of crotch. Okay, so I would line up the bells in line with just the front of your shins. Weird, I know. So like right in front of your heels, and then come down, right? And then before you pick it up, check and see where are your knees. And also before you pick it up, get your lats engaged. Sit your hips down, lift your chest up. And just work on hips down, chest up, hips down, chest up, to get that initial lift of the weight. And then all you have to do is stand up and try to get the bells to line up back where they were every time. It's really helpful to also do this on like a line on the floor. Sometimes I'll use like a TheraBand or something that makes it really clear for the individual to see if they are deviating from where they set up. Because they might start off pretty good, but sometimes or often when people are coming back down, that's when they actually fucking lose the lift because they do this. So they load their back, and the bells, in this case, or the bar, would be forward, right? Like way far forward. And that would pretty much set you up to inadvertently lift it with your back every single time. Alternately, what people do is get their knees in the way, right? And so with the bar, you really feel that happen, which also causes the same thing to happen. With the kettlebell, you basically just turn it into a sumo squat, right? Which, because this is gonna be a relatively low weight compared to what you can put on like the barbell, it's harder to identify that when you're doing the squat, which is why I said, you know, it depends on the individual. What we have to do, it's all the same shit, you guys. That's what I'm trying to say. What we have to do, if you wanna get better at this shit and not hurt yourself, is we have to find what idea, concept, cue, image, whatever that works for you in your body that makes it click. Because when it clicks, it's like, oh my God, yes, I see it, I see it. I was blind. And you know what made it click for me was some strong bitch's story on Instagram. Like, no kidding. She's really fucking strong deadlift. I liked her. She's kind of gone off the deep end, so whatever. And she doesn't really deadlift anymore. Stop taking drugs. Anywho, her story, like, just turned the light on. And I was like 2 weeks out from a meet, which when you should not be fucking with your form. And it was just like fireworks. It made so much sense from that point on. Anywho, as you can see, this is complex. Of course it is. You're an individual. It's never one size fits all. And don't fucking deal with people who say it is one size fits all and that the problem is you. The problem might be you a little bit, but what the real thing that you have to do and that you have to realize is you have to cut the shit, leave your fucking ego at the door, and put yourself in uncomfortable, novel lifts that illuminate for you what the fuck you're doing wrong. Because when you figure it out and you get so much stronger and it goes into every single lift, it feels so fucking good. Don't be afraid to work for something. It's gonna take some effort. You don't just get to be really good at all this shit without putting in the work. Ask any elite lifter. My name's Karis, Fix Your Shitty Movement. Hope to see you at the workshop.